Welcome to the Circles Chat podcast. My name is Elijah. Today for our conversation, I wanted us to just think for a second. I want everyone to just think when it comes to what you're told, what everyone says online. What we hear a lot when it comes to relationships, when it comes to dating, there's a whole lot of what is wrong with you? What is wrong with everyone around you? It's almost like everyone in the world is the problem, except for the messenger. The messenger is the only one who wants you to think you're the only person on your side and the world is against you. Because there's all these twos. We're too short. We're too tall. Our body count is too high. Our body count is too low. There's all these twos that are an issue with us. But maybe the issue isn't all of these things. And maybe we need to get back into where we not just fall in love with ourselves, but allow ourselves to feel like we can feel love and be loved at the same time. There's actually a poet that I like to listen to, someone that my dad put me on to, that he once said a very wise quote that says, "Everyone falls in love sometimes." And I don't know about you, but it is not a crime. So, you could probably call it that was there. And it's true, and I think even to this day, everyone's still falling in love. Some of us might be falling in love with an ex. Some of us might be falling in love with ourselves. Some of us might just be falling in love with the idea of love. But it's okay for us to all understand that we just want to feel love. So I decided I was going to have a panel of guests here today who they have their own experiences on the conversation. And I wanted to open up a conversation about the beauties of relationship, how we can more understand ourselves through relationships, and just overall have a great conversation, a great panel discussion here. So I want everyone, and how I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves, where usually what I would do is I would be the one to say your name, what you do, everything. But for the people who are going to be listening, they're going to hear just a whole lot of voices after my voice is done. So I want everyone to feel free, introduce yourself, what you do, and I'm going to add a little something to that. I want you to also add with it one thing that you like doing for your partner and one thing that you really love about your partner. So I'm going to put everyone on the spot real quick, but I'm going to put someone on the spot real quick. I'm going to start with Shane, and we're just going to go around in a circle this way.
Okay. Wow. Wasn't sure which direction we were going, but I am Shane Lyons. I'm a registered psychotherapist and the co-owner of What's Good, a natural skincare brand. And one thing, what was it again?
One thing that you like doing for your partner and one thing you really like about your partner.
One thing that I like doing for my wife here is I love to cook for her. That was literally our first date. I made her food and helped her to fall in love with me. And one thing that I love about her is her heart. She's very open and honest, and she's taught me how to feel emotions on a different level, and she is the definition of practicing what she preaches.
Love that.
Good luck.
I was gonna say, can we clap or snap? That was so that gave me goosebumps, man.
That's Shane Lyons. Well, I'm Mara Lyons, and I am a holistic hairdresser and life coach. I help women relax into themselves, relax into being at peace with who they are at their core. I'm also co-owner of What's Good, natural skincare. And something that I love doing for my husband is just taking care of him, really connecting with him, feeling him empathically, and almost, what's the word? Predetermining what he needs before he even knows he needs it. I love doing that for him. So he'll say sometimes that I love when he's sick, because he's just kind of like at my at my every beck and call, and I have to like just take care of him. And see, I mean, I hate when he's sick. I don't want him to feel horrible, but I love that I get to like baby him a little bit and like take care of him in the way that he takes care of me. And what was the other question?
No, that was the two.
That was it? Yeah. Oh, what I love about him. I mean, similarly, like he said about me, his heart. He's always willing and pushes people to be their best selves. Like he sees in people what they might not be able to see in them. And he turns them around and shows them the mirror and puts up the mirror of like, look at who you are and look what you can be. And he helps them get there. It sheds the light on who they are. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm Zain Husain. I'm also a registered psychotherapist and a life coach for South Asian men. One thing I love doing for my wife is, something about me, I'm a hustler. Like I love, like I get my high from just busting like crazy, like just getting down to work. And I love hustling and I love doing crazy stuff, especially coming from an entrepreneur background. I'm sure you guys understand the grind. But one thing I purposely love doing for my wife is holding back on exhausting myself and leaving some energy in the tank, leaving some emotional availability in the tank for her. Almost, I try every day. Some days we can't do it. And I think the reason is, especially because I'm myself in a way, I can't access certain emotions when I'm in that zone. So being able to turn that off and going to her and being like, hey, what do you need from me openly without her kind of pestering me for it is something I like doing every day. One thing she does for me, is that the second question? Yeah. One thing she does for me is crazy because I never anticipated it, but I think it's really underrated. So someone who likes lifting and someone who loves, their diet and tracking macros, and I'm huge passionate about fitness, is the fact that every time she cooks, she knows exactly what the macros are. And so for me, one thing that's really weird, but I love it, is that I'll just be like 200 beef, 30 celery, 40 broccoli, and it's done and packed in like 20 minutes. Like I have a whole meal in my car. And it was hard because at the beginning of our relationship, I was very proud that I do all of this myself. You'll never need to cook for me. But now it's like, I just have to say numbers and I have a beautiful meal ready to go. And it's that thing that you said about knowing my needs before I even have to say them. And I think that's just like the crazy connection that you end up having with someone, especially when you're living together for many years. So yeah, that's me, man.
So you guys heard me start with the conversation. My name is Elijah. I am a podcast host. As well, I like to do a lot of producing and modeling on the side as well. One thing I would say that I love doing for my partner, my fiance, I should say, actually, is it's a very simple thing, and it kind of matches with, honestly, with what you're saying with the food, because I love food, and it's something that I learned a lot from my mom, and it was that experiences and that show of giving something fresh can come in even the smallest of ways. So even if it's just as little as me getting us something to eat, and just be like, okay, let's go here to eat. And it's funny with what you said too, was one of the first things I did for me and my fiance, she's Persian. So I was like, I'm going to find the Persian restaurant. We're going to go there to get food. And now I'm just like, okay, this is like a really well-reviewed restaurant. Let's just go. We're going to just go there, right? So that's one thing I like, but it's also even a mix with that. I related to what you said with just the present and just being present, wanting to work so much, but the little thing of just, you're in the room, I'm in the room, we're in the room together and we're present with each other is a huge thing. And I would say what I love the most with her is, it's such a big thing for me, is the fact that we can have such open conversations. And there's no judgment. We're able to say what we're thinking. We understand each other's hearts. And it's just, you're saying this, and I get where you're coming from with this part here. And we can all just bring more to each other with what we're saying. And where it's so big for me is, there was a lot of fear for that for myself. There's a lot of not wanting to be misunderstood. And being able to have that wound of feeling misunderstood healed from her meant so much to me, honestly. Yes, thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I feel like we've got a real simpatico thing going here because, well, I'll introduce myself first. So I'm Carina Reaves, and I call myself the relationship healer. I have been really diving deep in how we embody ourselves, our lives, our concepts of the mind, body, and spirit is what we bring to our relationships. And we're in a world right now where it feels like everybody just talks so much. And it's such a gift to be able to include your awarenesses. And of course, being able to articulate is huge. It's funny that I stumbled over the word articulate. But then to be able to be in the present moment, not just talk about what might be happening, but to be in it has to come from the body. I'm also a sound healer. I lead something called a cello portal with my cello playing. So something that I love giving Matt is playtime. We just absolutely love mucking about, pretending we're anything from howling wolves to frolicking puppies, and just what do we want to do now, and have that ultimate freedom that anything is possible. What do we want to, like, just completely spontaneous in the moment. That truth telling, that presence is, we love finding it through play. And something that I absolutely love about you is how you have this incredible gift of bringing out the best in other people. You listen and you care about people, and teach me more about caring and loving and listening every single day. Thank you. I love it.
Okay, Matt Hilliard is my name, and I'm a relationship guide, healer, and men's group leader as well. Something that's been very important in my life and in my own journey, my own transformation, and a lot of what I've learned in that process has been around embodiment and actually doing the really basic work of being able to name my feelings and feel my feelings, which in turn has allowed me to be more present for other people, men, clients, Carina, my children, when they're in their feelings too, instead of being terrified of what those feelings are and what they represent. And yeah, what I love doing for you, I could kind of borrow from everything I've heard. I love taking care of you when you're at mine, and just, again, yeah, it's just sort of trying to like anticipate and provide and think ahead and make sure you feel taken care of and you have room to rest or work or whatever it is. And one of the things I love about you most is, there's a lot, but it's your presence and your courage, which I borrow from sometimes to have the conversations that we need to have the play that we enjoy so much, to be in the journey of the relationship, that open-heartedness and curiosity. Yeah, thank you.
One thing I want to say, I really like all the eye contact right there. Like, everything just felt so powerful, and everyone was saying, and I feel like I've not been able to be in a room, and what I love with this part right here was being able to hear everyone be like, it's not even just the love that I receive, but the love that I get to give out, and hearing people feel the value of what they understand, like, wow, like this part's value. Because I think a lot of times we bring so much out, and we don't, sometimes we just go. And even not just in a romantic relationship, but even with ourselves or with our family and friends, we don't realize, like, oh my, like, is this what I'm doing? Appreciate, like, is this recognize this, that I'm doing here? And hearing that must be, I feel like it's so powerful. Like, how is it for you guys hearing that, I'd say, as well, for you guys when you hear it from your partner?
Well, when my wife gives me a compliment and that validation, it just triggers that feeling of being safe. Because I think a lot of this rush and the anxieties that we feel come from, we're in a dysregulated nervous system. We're in fight or flight. And a lot of people haven't been in a relationship where they felt safe and let that safety transition into this feeling of freedom to be themselves. And when, right before we got together, I had changed the way I wanted to look at finding a relationship, because prior to it, it was the checklist. I think a lot of people have of, we take our past experiences and we say, okay, well, these were things that I really liked. This was the stuff I didn't. So I don't want that. I want this. And we keep adding and adding and adding. But the issue with that is we're constantly searching with the external to fulfill the needs of the internal. And where I switched with it was asking myself, how do I want to feel with someone? What do I want that to look like and be like? And the number one feeling was I wanted to feel free to be myself, to express, to cry, to talk about things, whatever it is, and not feel like I'm going to get shunned or have things thrown in my face. And just all those challenges that we experience in relationships that weren't meant for us in our lives. And I pursued that feeling. And when I recognized that I was feeling that, that in turn allowed me to feel safe, allowed my nervous system to like relax and chill. And I could just be. And then from that, like we blossom. And I lost sight of the question, but
That was
that was it. Okay. Yeah. But like ultimately, that's what really mattered. Like in that relationship of just being yourself and knowing that that is enough for someone, that they will love you just for you, because then now you can explore, well, what else can I connect with being myself in the world and everything. And the last piece I want to say to this is I had to learn in our relationship that the number one thing was for me to find love within. I had to really love myself in order to love you at the capacity that I do. Because if I'm not, then whatever I'm projecting is not what you deserve. You deserve someone who like encompasses loving themselves so deeply so that they can give you the form of unconditional love that I feel like we only experience with children and like being a parent. And that's what we wanted to embody and mimic. I'll stop there.
That was perfect.
It was so beautiful. I feel like he just said everything that I was about to say, pretty much. But it's validating hearing that my husband loves me and sees me for who I am. Like when he gives me these compliments, it really feels like he's seeing my soul. He's seeing my heart, because this is what I'm trying to portray with everything that I do, right? But like he said, going within and giving myself that validation is key for me to receive that validation from him. Because if I wasn't doing that for myself, then I wouldn't be able to receive that so deeply as I do now, right? So I think that's really the key there.
And now I know for ourselves, our partners are not on the panel here right now, but I also want to know you for yourself here as it comes to you right now, Zain. When you do get the validation of understanding, like when you're, can't remember, fiance or wife, my apology. When your wife does give you that external validation, that you know, like, hey, like I love this about you. How does it feel for you as well?
In my culture, we grow, and this is almost all of the men I've worked with have grown up with a void of lack of validation, especially when it pertains to the paternal side, so from fathers. The logic behind it is very simple. They're immigrants. They had to go on survival. They were never taught how to name their emotions even. You know, that's like that would be huge for them. But because of that, there's a void. Obviously, I'm from that culture. I experienced it myself to a certain degree. So when I received that validation from my wife, I feel so seen, but it's also the other flip side is being careful not to let that validation be the fuel behind my actions. When you start operating from a place of, oh, if I do this for her, she might say, good job. Well, that's not me. That's my childhood showing up. When that happens, that can be potentially damaging, because if that doesn't happen, which she has every right to do because she's a human being, she doesn't have to validate me all the time. But if that doesn't happen, there might be some resentment there. And in many relationships, when the seeds of resentment get planted, it has to be addressed quickly. If not, it's going to lead to it's going to bleed out into other parts of that relationship, especially when it's something like marriage. But on the flip side, when I do receive that validation, me personally, as somebody who provides and works hard for her and makes sure that her needs are met and that she's taken care of, because she, like me, gets very involved in whatever task she's doing. She has to give it her all. She has to dump 100% of her, whatever she's doing, even the most minute of tasks like vacuuming, she has to give it her all. For me, when she's off, it's like, okay, now what can I do for you? How can I provide for you? Not monetarily, but in other ways as well, like emotional and even helping her physically around the house, which is a huge thing in our culture as well. And doing that makes me feel like, okay, this is something that I'm doing in terms of my purpose as a man in this relationship as well. So, yeah.
And I really like that input that you had and that understanding of that culture you mentioned coming from. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. And especially as you said, like myself, there's a lot of the culture that we're, as men, that we're raised on of there's not much emotion that we see being projected towards us or we're allowed to bring out there. So you bringing that, I really appreciate you bringing that up there, honestly. And I want to say now, I guess for you guys over here, we haven't got to you guys, my apologies. I do want you to express as well when the conversation comes up and we're talking about you're hearing the external validation, how it feels for you guys as well, starting with yourself, Carina.
External validation. I have a different history than a lot of people. I grew up on stage. I was a classical performer, a classical musician, and so I've had a lot of validation in my life for what I've done in a very separate way. So there's 20 feet between me and the closest audience member. And so for me, the validation that means so much in my relationship is when it can be in that intimate, quiet, face-to-face, heart-to-heart space that I can feel seen for me, not just for what I'm doing or creating or producing. And so that feeling of being loved and appreciated for whatever is coming up for me is something that means so much. And I was thinking about, being with the three of you and this whole panel and the awarenesses and the presence and the decision to appreciate yourselves first was a huge journey I had to go on. I had to go through a divorce and huge work in Tantra and energy work and self-development to be able to get to the space where I could understand myself first. I remember in my marriage, I wanted so much for him to see and accept me, and it would put me on my best behavior. Yeah, some nods there. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, we're getting each other, things are good. Okay, now I can bring up some of the harder stuff. And he'd be like, no, that's not part of the deal. We're not talking about that, we're not doing that. And so for me, heading into a relationship that does feed my soul is one where we can bring the good stuff and the challenges and where we want to grow. And I'm so grateful for how much work is coming into the world, that people can find literally answers to questions that maybe their partner isn't willing to hear yet, but you can find it in yourself first. And like everyone's saying, that then you get to bring that to the relationship. And once I learned some of these pieces, once I figured out how to be with myself, before I met this guy, I had 2 marriage proposals. Like, it just changes everything. And that freedom is what gives you the choice to not only be who you want to be, but to create a relationship and be with someone who you want to be with and create that relationship with. Yeah. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah. So hearing the validation, feels great. Feels really wonderful. It warms me, and it also reminds me it's a prompt to let it in as well, because there's part of me still that wants to deflect it. Somehow it's just, do I deserve this? What is this? This is uncomfortable. And to really just take a breath and drop in and let it in and let it be a truth about me, about this moment between us, about how you feel about me. So there's some, it feels warm, and then there's this kind of cognitive journey as well that I really appreciate, because it reminds me that I'm lovable and deserving of love, and the step of letting it in feels like self-love.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's powerful, honestly. And there's a really great segue with what you're saying there and what with this introduction, getting the first panel questions here, one of the things I wanted to bring up was how there's all these aspects of relationships. And I think one of the things that people focus on a lot and try to figure out at the same time is that initial adjustment stage, right? There's these adjustments that we make because with the relationship, there's the life that we had, that we started having ourselves, and we are very much, this is my life, I'm just doing this one thing here. And when you're adding a person into it, there's the remembrance that you have to keep and adjusting of, okay, there's this aspect that they had as well of what they had for themselves. It's understanding that adjustment. And then on top of that, for when kids come involved, you might have this idea of, we're going to, you know what, we're always going to travel every year. We're going to go to this country, that country, that country. And then when kids come along, it's like, okay, I have to think about my kids. There's always these adjustments that come into our lives. And even honestly, I think individually, in our individual lives, there's adjustments that come about. Maybe, I know for myself, I wanted to be an artist, producer, and DJ, but then spiritually, my life came about and I wanted to veer away from that path. There's adjustments that come into life. So I guess what I want to ask, and starting with, I'll actually answer the question first, and I'm going to bring it over to yourself here, Matt, since you have the microphone here. I want to ask everyone here what that adjustment period was like for you and how you embraced it from there. So I know for myself, that adjustment period for me was, I was getting into a phase when I first met my fiance where I was starting to like being alone, and not even like in a depressed way, but I just enjoyed just being by myself. And I was like, I'm going to go to the movies by myself. I'm going to go to the restaurant by myself. I'm just going to be in my own hum-diddy-dum world on my own. So when my fiance came about, she loved being in my presence. And I was like, I love you being here, but I'm going to have moments where I'm going to want to be just completely by myself. But then I had to understand where that comes from as well. And I had to understand myself of realizing, yes, you know what, Elijah, like being alone is great, but let someone push you outside of that mold of being alone. And her helping me push me outside of that mold helped me realize that a part of the reason that I do like being alone so much is because I almost don't know the value for myself in spaces. And I don't know how to be in spaces and understand how to like take myself out of my head and be present in a moment. So it helped me a lot with that. And also helped me understand from that, like, wow, like I can end up being in phases where I go, and then like, it was almost like it was just not really cared about or not recognized that I will go months and not talk to like friends or anyone. I'm just so in a path of enjoying myself and just being in my own space that I can go months and I don't communicate with anyone. And I was like, that's not good. So this pushing me outside of that comfort zone, this adjustment that I'm feeling, it's something that I did need, and it's pushing me outside of this boundary that I needed to become a better person. So I guess for yourself, starting with you, I'm putting you on the spot here. You're on the hot seat, the first one this time.
Yeah, here we go. So yeah, this was a journey because when we met, so I was married for almost 20 years, had kids with my ex-partner, and Carina was my first date. Very first date after my marriage. So I was coming from, an experience of, living with my ex and our two kids, into an experience of, of co-parenting, having my own place, having co-custody of the kids, so the kids going back and forth, really enjoying that space, or like appreciating having the silence when I was on my own, like the bliss of the silence, and when I shifted into dating, I thought I was going to be going on a wild adventure and hitting the apps and meeting all these women and kind of finding out who I was now 20 years later out there as a single man. And but my first date was with Carina, and I'd done my training as a coach at sort of a year to 2 years, which had been a lot of self-exploration. And what you had said, Shane, around how you wanted to feel with somebody as opposed to, the checklist of how do I want to feel? What would an incredible relationship feel like being with that person? And I felt it on day one with Carina. So I wrestled with it, truthfully, like beyond that first date of what my expectations were of how the next, few months or few years were going to be, to allowing this beauty into my life, this calm, this connection, this intimacy, this validation, this being seen. And I can't say I was just like, oh, fantastic, here we go. I had some resistance, and it was a bit of a struggle and a bit of back and forth at times. And also we both have kids from our previous relationship, so that there was a very kind of real world amalgamation as well as an emotional and sort of the practical of your life, my life, but there are also these little people around that we needed to figure out as well.
Can I tell the story?
Yeah.
So we met in July and had a wonderful fall, and then IKEA. It always comes back to IKEA. We went to IKEA. We thought we'd survived the trip to IKEA, and then we're sitting, he's dropping me off. He's about to head back to his, and he's like, I've got something I want to talk to you about. It was December? Yeah. December, second week of December. So 6 years ago, 6 months later, after we'd met. And he said, I think I want to date other people. I was like, oh, okay. I was crushed. And we kept talking.
Yeah.
And I remember 2 things happened. One, my search on the internet found me this piece of gold, which was love them enough to love what they want for them. I was like, okay. So we call it the week of pain. There was many phone calls of crying, mostly you.
Yeah. I was going through a lot.
And I said, I love that for you. I get it. I want you to have that. And I think part of you asked me to wait or to be part of it.
I can't remember, but something like
Yeah. And I said, I can't be part of it,
Yeah.
but I wish you just everything you want and more. And then he said, can I share? Can I share? And then he said, okay. I just do want to let you know, though, that the Molly we ordered came in the mail yesterday. And I said, oh, well, we should do that then. So that was like Tuesday, Wednesday. And Saturday, neither of us had our kids. I had a Christmas party to go to. And he's like, I'll pick you up from the Christmas party. And earlier that Saturday, a friend asked if I would play Christmas carols at a mall, something hilarious. And I said, okay. So I'm getting ready for this gig. And it's in the morning, and I'm thinking about what's coming later in the day. I'm thinking about, okay, we're going to do a Molly journey. Okay, I'm going to see Matt. Okay, we're not really officially together. And I just felt it was like this gift of gratitude, like just my whole being split open. And I realized that no matter what happened, I was just so glad I met you and that I loved you. And I would bring that love forward no matter what was coming next. And so in this split, my heart burst open state, I go to the Christmas party, you come and pick me. I can feel how nervous you are as like you're walking towards me, and I'm just like shining with love for this man. And I can feel you kind of being like, wait, what's happening right now? Isn't she supposed to be mad at me? Isn't this supposed to be like awkward and horrible? And I was just so happy to see you no matter what came next. And we went to my kitchen, and half an hour later, I'm puttering, making us some tea or what have you. And then you burst out. You're like, fine, this is what I want. And then we had an incredible Molly journey, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Oh, no, you guys.
Amazing. I love it. I love that story so much. I think the idea of I think it's also a lot to do with where you're operating from as a person and to attract that kind of energy. So for me personally, I was very young. So when I met my wife, I was 20 years old. We got engaged at 21, married at 22. Something that if you asked my 16-year-old self would laugh at and would think you're probably on Molly, because why would anyone do that? But I remember that I went through a very turbulent time in my life. I had a massive surgery, near-death experience, a lot of stuff, and I had to heal on my own, and I did that journey on my own. And pretty much, as you said, that alone time became something almost like sacred to me. It was like, okay, this is the only thing I have right now is myself, and I need to be there for myself. And I didn't date. I didn't do any of that. Like, randomly, my mom was like, let's go to this family's house. We just have to go. I'm like, I don't want to go. And they're like, just come on. And we go there, and it was like straight out of the movies. I saw her for the first time, and I'm like, uh-oh. And it was really weird because the checklist that I had, none of it matched. None of it. And I only remember the feeling. That's the only thing I remember. And at that point, because culturally, like if that happens and the families like each other, we have a very real conversation about where to take the relationship, like, or where to really craft a relationship and take it. And my family was, at first, I was like, yeah, like this feels good. Like I need that. But when reality kicked in, I was like, there's no way. Like I'm not okay right now. Like I can't do this, and this is that. And really internally, it was that this person doesn't deserve who I am right now because I haven't fully healed. The thing is, you never actually fully heal. It's always the way things work out is you're constantly healing no matter what, because life throws adjustments at you. You can't heal because the next adjustment will do something to you that requires you to further heal, but you're ultimately getting to your best self anyway. And so, one thing led to the next, and I leaned into that moment solely because my family and everyone around me said, you are absolutely stupid for having any reason to say no to this, because we know that there is no real reason. Because they'd be like, why don't you want to have a relationship with her or get engaged or at least have some sort of formality to this? And I'm like, it's, her, she's just, I don't know, she's weird. She says ducks the wrong way. She says this the wrong way, and I don't like that. And everyone's like, yeah, no. And then we got engaged. We started to get to know each other a little bit more. And I think after 3 weeks of having a very real conversation about non-negotiables, values, where we see life going for us, very real, raw conversation, not hidden by anything or any insecurities, we went to our parents, we're like, we want to get married. And fast forward, here I am married, and we've been married now for 3 years. And the second adjustment came actually when we got married and we started living together. That's when that other adjustment kicked in. And I think it happens for a lot of people because it's really easy to think that someone from a distance is very compatible, easy to love. But when you're living with them and they start saying like, hey, don't leave the toilet seat up, or hey, don't do this. And you're like, uh-oh, what did I do? And so that adjustment period is also beautiful because it taught me that, I remember I went to a mentor and I was like, she's weird. She's calling me out for random things. She gets mad about random things. I think there's something wrong with her. I don't know. Is this how everybody is? And then my mentor at the time was like, listen, it's either her or no one. And if that statement resonates with you, then you're on the right path. Just keep going. And so I kept going, and now we're here. And all praise to God. I think we're in a very harmonious, respectful relationship where I am 100% fulfilled. So yeah.
Beautiful. So we've gone through many adjustment periods in the last 5 years that we've been experiencing this union, I guess. But I'll start with me first. So the first adjustment period that I went through was an individual adjustment period. Just before I had met Shane, I was in a very dark place, a very, very dark place in a previous relationship, broke up in that relationship, and was just wanting more and wanting better. And I knew that I deserved a lot more, but I knew that it started here, right? So I was in kind of like this cocoon almost, or like in the cave. I saw the light, but I was still in the depths of this cave. And I had a very powerful meditation one night, and it was on a full moon. And I felt who I knew was my husband, right? I didn't know what he looked like. I didn't, kind of on the same path as everybody, the feeling, like I embodied the feeling of what it felt like to be in love, to be loved, and what they felt like to me. So fast forward a few months, Shane shows up in my Instagram DMs. And instantly, as he's speaking to me, this little glimmer of this feeling starts to, hello, we're here. So I fed into it. I was in no place to feed into this because of everything that I was going through, or my mind really told me that I was in no place to feed into this. And I had claimed celibacy. I wanted to be just single and alone, to recharge me, because I had been through a lot and by that point. But I fed into it, and I found, like, on the first date, because of how authentic our connection was, because I didn't go into it expecting anything, really, literally anything at all. I just wanted to have a good time. And through our conversation, through text and through on the phone, I was having a good time. And when he asked me to go for a walk, this was in the middle of COVID, like in 2021, in the peak of the pandemic, we were all locked down. He asked me to go for a walk, and I said, yeah, of course, right? This feels good. That's probably going to feel good. I'll just go because it feels good, right? And that first night, we were so vulnerable with each other. Like, so vulnerable. And it was within the first couple hours, it was like, cut the bullshit. Why are we here? What do you want? How are you growing? What have you learned? Like, all these things. Trauma. We talked about all of our trauma and why we feel like it's benefited us and not benefited us. Like, it was just such a deep night. We ended up speaking until like 5 a.m. that morning. And again, like, I had claimed celibacy. I was at his condo. 5 a.m. I look at the clock, and he's like, oh, shoot, like, we should go to bed. And I said to myself, I was like, no, I got to go home, right? I got to go home. Absolutely not. I made this promise to myself. This is too tempting. I love him already. like I can feel it. I know. Absolutely not. And he was just so respectful to me. And he was like, nothing is going to happen. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't feel comfortable letting you go home at this point. I'll take you home in the morning. Right? He even offered to sleep on the couch. He's like, I'll take my couch, you take my bed. Just super respectful. He did sleep next to me that night. Nothing happened. He still respected me, and we it was just wonderful. But that feeling of respect, there was no, I'm going to tell you one thing and manipulate you to another thing. There was no, like, let me see how far I can get. It was just very respectful. And that was the second glimmer of the love that I knew, that I felt, right? And I was like, oh, okay, maybe. So that weekend, one walk turned into 4 days of nonstop just connection, but same thing, respect, vulnerability, and love. And we kept saying to each other that weekend, we felt like we were on vacation. You know, when you're like, you go on vacation and you meet like a vacation love that you never speak to again, but it's just like, there's no responsibilities. You just feel like you're in like this blissful place. You don't have to think about anything. You're just super present with each other. And that's what it felt like.
It's like you're in Mexico and love is blind.
Boom. Exactly. quite literally. That's what it felt like. We're like, oh, this is weird, but okay, we're just going with it. Again, getting super vulnerable, talking about our values, our morals, our beliefs, and they were all aligned, like completely aligned. And the feeling starts bubbling up even more. And then the next weekend, I'm waiting for him to come pick me up because obviously I'm going to spend every weekend with this guy now. Next weekend, he comes to he calls me and he goes, hey. And I'm like, oh no. My first thought is, he has a girlfriend or something, because the way that he's talking, or the way that his tone of voice was like, something's wrong. I'm like, oh no. He goes, I have COVID. And I'm like, oh no, right? Because like I was so excited to see him that weekend, but now he's like, oh, we can't see each other, whatever. But because we were with each other last weekend in close quarters, you're gonna have to go get tested too. It literally felt like he was telling me he had an STD or something like that. Like that's how serious it was.
It felt
Like that. That's what it felt like.
I was asymptomatic.
He was asymptomatic, but I was like, okay, whatever. So we had like a Zoom date that night. I was so excited to just be on Zoom with him for hours. Like just literally, I was eating my ramen. He had sent me ramen. I was like eating my ramen. We were just like playing games online. It was so much fun. And then I get tested the next day. And the nurse tells me, well, even if you do come out negative or whatever, you're still going to have to quarantine. It was that time where we had to quarantine for 10 days straight. You're still going to have to quarantine because even if it comes back negative, there's still whatever the possibility. So I call him up and I'm like, hey, so you're asymptomatic. I still have to quarantine. How about we do this together? Like, crazy idea. Like, how about we do this together? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, yeah, we should do this together. He's like, so we're making the conscious decision that we're going to quarantine. Our second date is going to be a quarantine for 10 days straight. And I'm like, yeah, what else would it be? Obviously, like this is what we're going to do.
Coming to Netflix next week.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm imagining you both with the gold Love is Blind cups the whole time now.
I know. Maybe we should write a reality show off of this. But after that 10-day quarantine, like we were just it was so easy, you know, like, yes, there were certain times where we got, I think, a little uncomfortable with certain things, but it was so easy. And there was no doubt in my mind that feeling was him, right? That feeling that I felt in that meditation, that feeling that I knew I wanted to feel, and the way that I was able to be and feel within my body and feel within myself was exactly what I felt with him. And there was no doubt in my mind that this was going to be it. Whether it's for now or forever, it was an it of some sort, and I was meant to be here. And then the second adjustment, rambling on, the second adjustment was when we physically had to move in together, right? I had, like, my journey came from the inside out, right? So the inside, I was ready to embody this. I was ready to morph into this new entity that is us, right? But the physical. So I was, like yourself, a performer my whole life. I was a dancer, right? And beginning of quarantine, before I met Shane, I quit that life and went into dance as a more therapeutic space for myself. But because I was so familiar, or the feeling of being on stage and getting that validation and growing and training and all that was so familiar to me, I went right back into it in a different genre, but I went right back into it. And I was progressing really, really quickly, right? And killing it and getting really, really good, really, really quickly. And I went into Brazilian samba, and I was like this close to parading in Brazil, which was like my big dream, this close. Then he moves in. I have gigs every weekend. I'm in the studio every night. He's working every day. We have no time to cultivate this. Like, we had no time to cultivate our relationship. And he had to sit me down and he said, what's happening here? He didn't ask me to stop. He didn't ask me to change my life. He just said, when do I get you? When do we get to be us, right? Because I had no time. So I had to make an adjustment. I had to listen to the feeling. I had to listen to my heart. And I quit right before I hit this big dream that I thought I wanted. But the feeling that I was chasing with that life, I had here on like a 10, like times 1,000, times 100. But because I was so, I guess it was more coming from my ego. Like, I wanted this for myself, and I, everything's about me, and I needed this, right? I needed to, like you were speaking about, feeding the childhood, my little girl, that was the little girl's dream. How dare I give this up for big girl's dream, big woman's dream? Like, you know what I mean? How dare I do her dirty that way, right? But then reframing into this adjustment is for everything I've ever wanted. Everything that I've ever felt, everything that I've dreamed for. It's what I'm here for, is love. This is what it is, right? I didn't do it. It wasn't easy. I went kicking and screaming, 100%. I threw tantrums. I blamed it on him, projected on him. You told me, you made me give up my dream. It was like the projection, the little girl kicking and screaming, right? But then when I calmed my nervous system and got myself out of that, I'm very, very grateful that I did make that decision, to turn towards my love, turn towards my life, really. Yeah.
Good job.
Can I just say something real quick? I love that so much because the fact that you understood that it was a feeling that you were after is something that shows up in my work with young men so much, is because they're and it's like the social media thing too, is like they're chasing the money, they're chasing this lifestyle, they're chasing this idea of when I hit this, I will be this. The thing is, that feeling comes from what you're describing. It comes from people around you. It comes from creating that safe space around you. Most of the men I work with that are ambitious and driven and have these huge financial goals, when we really get down to it, it turns out they just want a safe space. They just want a safe space to express themselves, and they'd be okay with it even if they were making like what, 6, 7K a month, 3K a month, doesn't matter. They just want that safe space. And so I really resonated with what you said, is because in a way, a lot of, I think, women in today's day and age also, I feel, that are craving that feeling of a safe space. And many people, not just women, are going in all sorts of different directions trying to find out that, oh, will this get me that feeling? And what's really sad is many people will do that for a really long time and have a hard realization at a really later stage in life that, oh, it wasn't the thing that was supposed to make me feel this way. It was the person or my internal environment. So thanks so much for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I just need to clarify a part of Mara's story. Not that I'm not saying that she's wrong or anything. She just left out a very important detail. So yes, I did slide in your DMs. However, that was not our first engagement with one another. I had met her 2 years prior at a bar, so the old-fashioned way, which I'm very proud of, because I mustered up the courage at the end of the night when I had my inner asshole in my head saying to me, like, oh, you're not going to be good enough to talk to her, like, you just don't do it. Like, I was just really anxious, but I went for it right before she was about to leave, and I tried getting her number. She gave me her Instagram, went on a date together, which was lovely. We were very different people at that point in time. And then we collectively ghosted each other, whoever wants to take the lead with that piece. But yeah, so that happened, and fast forward, we both get into relationships, and then those both end around the exact same time. And then I choose to, at that point in my life, like a part of this adjustment, I bought a condo. The year prior, a very challenging experience occurred in my life. I lost my father, and that was a deep wound for me because I had my own fatherhood wound, like most men have, and that's a lot of the work I'm helping men to work through, is that fatherhood wound. So mine was loud and strong and overwhelming. So me buying this condo, I just got a raise, and then eventually I bought my new car, and I felt like, okay, this would have made my dad proud. I'm so excited. And then the next step is, my dad loved to cook, I love to cook, and I made a cooking page on Instagram, and then that's where her page popped up, and that's where the DM. But anyways, that's besides the point. The adjustment, the moving in, that also represented me having to let go of the world I worked so hard to create, because buying my condo meant the world to me, because I grew up in transient housing, right? My mom and we moved, I don't know, I probably moved like 20 times in my life. And plus, prior to buying my condo, I already had moved 4 times within the past like 5 years. So almost every year I'm moving, and I finally had this space. I'm like, this is mine. I'm going to finally decorate my room, and then even more. And I put so much thought into it. And then I'm meeting her, and I'm realizing this doesn't fit, but I'm wrestling with it, because if it doesn't fit, then someone has to give. And my logical brain knows that I'll give it up, but my emotional side is like, I'm giving up the life that I worked so hard to create. And if I give this up, who am I? Mm-hmm. And I was afraid of that. I remember we went to Portugal together for her grandmother's funeral, and we got into a fight about this, like the idea of, moving in, because she was living at her grandmother's apartment and she already had all these memories there, so that was her home. And for me to leave mine, I'm now just going into your space, and it didn't feel like it was ours. And that triggered me because I worked so hard to finally find my own space, and now I'm just going to be a secondary person in yours. And that was really uncomfortable, and we argued about it, and it was challenging until finally I decided to sell my place right before the market crashed. So very wise choice. And I used that to invest into becoming a therapist and all these synchronicities, because alongside with what you both mentioned about Molly, ours was psilocybin. And that happened right after, actually, funny enough, a year after my dad passed on Father's Day. My dad passed 2 days after Father's Day. So on Father's Day, we did that, and we went for this walk, and that meditation she mentioned, she had called me over. She randomly sprinted to this tree and calls me over, come sit down. She's like, this was like our meditation, and seeing me. And 6 months prior to that, I had went to a medium who said, I already met my soulmate. And remember, I already went on a date with her, and right in that moment, boom, I know this is it. So that was really beautiful. But the second, now letting go of the condo became easier knowing that, but the bigger adjustment was having to accept the fact that you represent my mirror. And as much as you can bring out the beauty of what is me, you bring out the ugly too. And that ugly came hard. And she used to, that ugly would stop me from validating your emotions so many times. And that was always a challenge. And she would use this metaphor that would piss me off. So the analogy that she would use was, it felt like I was backing out of the driveway and she walked behind me and my car hit her, ran her over. And my first response is, why are you walking behind me instead of attending to her wound? So when I was invalidating her emotions, that's what it felt like. And I'm like, but that's absurd. I'm not actually backing over you. How can you compare these two? And I was so caught in the rationalization and the logic, as opposed to connecting with the emotion. So when she's mirroring this and me invalidating her emotions, it also highlighted to me, I do that all the time to myself. So I had to really sit with that, and that adjustment of being able to actually learn how to validate people's emotions and to park my ego and to just hold space and learn the communication, all these things. That was probably the biggest. That's more than my condo, because that's a material. This is the real work that most relationships never even get to experience. I see it all the time in couples therapy when I'm working with couples. So thank you for your analogy, because I use it, I borrow it, but those years, it was tough. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say two things. One is that really resonates with me right now, because I'm literally coming up against another layer of that around the kind of the validation and what does it mean? What does it require of me? One of the kind of pleasures and gifts of being in this relationship is that work, when it comes up, is that we choose to be with it. However hard it is and however much of a struggle it is. The other thing is what I've noticed in what all of us shared around how we came to the relationships that we have is surrender. The word of surrender, some form of letting go, not surrender as in giving up, but surrender as in sort of letting go in service of something bigger that serves us, whether it's the relationship that's serving us or our understanding of ourselves. Yeah.
And that was honestly, I was going to mention it because that was one thing I was noticing. And I honestly felt so much relation to everyone's stories. And I was like, wow, I could relate to that. Wow, I could relate to this. And I can imagine for people who are listening right now, and if there's something you can relate to, definitely let us know in the comments. But it does bring to the next thing I was going to bring up here, and it's how with these adjustments, there ends up with, as you were mentioning there, Shane, there's levels of our own internal traumas that we end up having to realize, like, okay, I need to be aware of my own traumas here and how this can shape the relationship. And part of that gets molded with these traumas, it's also to kind of layer the question here. There's an idea of healthy change and unhealthy change in relationships. And when we're, especially with everyone, a lot of that adjustment period coming in those first few months, it's being able to identify those healthy changes and those unhealthy changes. For example, the healthy changes, when you're mentioning yourself, you're like, man, like, I don't like this catchphrase. I don't like this phrase that you're using here, but it is actually helping me. And there are people who, when they're in this phase of, there's this thing in their nervous system almost, when they're feeling like this person's making me change, but I don't like how they're making me change, and they don't know, is this good for me or is it not? What are ways, I guess the first question I want to say for you guys to answer, I'm going to start with yourself here, Carina. What are ways that you saw traumas, what are ways that you recognize your traumas or relationships, how you're able to identify it, how it can shape a relationship, but also how you recognized this is a healthy change where in the past, this might have been an unhealthy change as well?
Great question. I hear people ask a lot of how do you know questions. Well, how do I know if this is important to me for me to deal with? Or how do I know if how my trauma is showing up in my day-to-day life? And there really is no greater gauntlet or light shining on your trauma than how you respond when things get hard. That's it. There you are. That's where you weren't listened to, or where your mom yelled at your dad, or where you had to go through hard things on your own, or where you chose to, maybe you were the class clown, or maybe you would hide in your room. And to be able to see the layers within a relationship of the moment, and then to be able to see yourself in the moment. Having a partner where you can do that, being relational, is where you get to see yourself. One of the things that we've been able to have some fun of seeing ourselves when we get into crisis. I'm going to call it crisis. It can really feel like the world is ending, and we are starting to call on these. We call it our adaptive child. We're big Terry Real fans. I don't know if any of you know him. And we would name those parts. So she's around less and less, but when I would get activated, I would get out my clipboard. We called her Nina Navy. And this is wrong, and I would be super logical. I'd be kind of lawyered up.
Felt really tight.
Really tight, yeah, really rigid. And she was always right, which was really annoying for everyone. And when you can start to see yourself and have a partner who can lovingly help you see yourself, ideally get to the lovingly, because usually at first you're going to our inner children bump into each other, our adaptive children. That's part of why we get into these relationships, is because my adaptive child perfectly triggers your adaptive child. Perfectly. It's uncanny. And so I really feel that's the gift that starts to happen in relationship, is you're given the gift of seeing yourself. Where normally, I'm right. It's just right. This is right. This is tight and right. And when love is more important than being right, what's the saying? You can either be right or you can have a relationship. Then you're given the gift of seeing what you would like to grow past, grow into, and grow with beyond what the ways we've coped with our trauma in the past.
And what I like with that, and with what I was thinking with it, is you're right. And it's so true of what you just said, of you could be right or you could be together. What's more worth it, essentially? And I know for myself, for example, when I look at, there's the healed changes, the unhealed changes, where's your trauma coming in? I look at change, and I look at things that make you feel uncomfortable, similar to things that I want for myself. It's almost like discipline, right? I want to get my 5 prayers. I want to get healthy food in my system. I want to work out. And these disciplines that I enjoy the results of, they're not easy. They're not easy things to do. It's not easy for me to wake up early and start these kind of practices, like you're saying yourself with the macros. It's not easy for me to get these focuses in. But when I focus myself and I let myself learn these things, I can look back 2 months later, 3 months later, and be like, wow, this all started from this hard moment over here, right? Where an unhealthy change, if you think about it, and I see people when they get out of some traumatic relationships, the one thing I hear a lot said is, it made me a stronger person because I went through this. And it's like, well, okay, yes, it did, but is this a change that you want to keep repeating? Do you want to keep testing the strength of yourself? And if the answer is, if you can leave a scenario and you can say to yourself, I don't want to experience this again, that could be where the unhealthy change is. And with the trauma part, is sometimes it's being able to also look at yourself from a third person perspective. Because I had to sometimes, as aware as I was, and one of the first questions, and I love how, I think both of you guys actually mentioned it with the first conversations you had. My fiance, the first question in the first serious conversation we had, it was, what are your traumas? And in that first conversation, I was able to, I'm like, I know, I'm very aware of where my traumas are. But it's not till I'm able to really look at myself from a third-party perspective, is a piece of that is going to be my awareness of my childhood traumas. And as much as you can know, there's a difference between knowing those traumas and being aware of how you on a day-to-day are reacting. And in that present moment, it's like, wow, like this moment where I'm in pain, that's still a piece of it. Let me be aware of that as well, right? Sorry.
I think the piece is like when it's patterns, right? So it's a lot of patterns. It's understanding that during times of crises or conflict, what's your go-to pattern? A lot of the times, though, when one partner is not okay with the other partner's baseline reaction to said conflict is when things like, it's like fuel to the fire. One thing I struggled with that. So in the beginning, especially like during the adjustment, is like, let's fix this now. And it's like, no, she was like, no, I need space. But she didn't communicate that correctly or in her way or whichever way made sense to me at the time. So what I saw was just someone shutting down. And then that made me angry because it was like, no, I need answers now. That stems from that childhood response of like, like this is not being resolved and we're going to get to the bottom of it. We must get to the bottom of it. If we don't, this is unsafe. Questions will be left unanswered. And then I will just sit all night in a state of like the world's ending. And I didn't want that for myself, which is intrinsically selfish. So understanding from my point of view is like, okay, that's how I show up. What can I do to help the relationship grow? What can I do to make sure that we're good? I had to give her space. And that's something that's still hard for me till this day, where it's like, if there's a crisis, if there's a conflict, it's like, okay, yeah, you need space, no worries. I'll go walk I'll just go sit outside. Like there's like the Pablo Escobar memes on the bench. I'll just go walk outside and just sit and think. And I'm willing to undergo that and that difficulty for your sake, because the thing is, when she comes back more regulated, that's when we actually get to the bottom of it anyway. So it's almost like letting go of the gas, because you know when you step back on it, the car is going to go way faster. And I think that is a conversation that many, many couples or people that are getting into a serious relationship should have at the beginning. The thing is, though, many people, especially from South Asian culture and many collectivist cultures in a nutshell, believe that, and this is like overall therapy anyway, believe that, oh no, there's no point in talking about traumas. There's no point in talking about what's in the past is in the past. Whatever we're going to do moving forward is what matters. But that idea is intrinsically incorrect, because your past informs how you operate in the present and how you see your future. So I think for those people who are like, we don't know what our traumas are, start by going to therapy. And I think, Shane, I think you would agree, where therapy is not for people who are broken or there's something wrong with them. I think even a very healthy, quote unquote, person can go to therapy for the idea of self-discovery. But if not that, because there's lots of barriers anyway, I think the idea of working on yourself to get to a place where you understand yourself is key. And I think that stems before you're able to understand your traumas. and communicate and all that lovely stuff, you have to fall in love with yourself first before you can love someone else. And I think that's a conversation that some people might not be ready for right now.
I guess it's my turn. Well, yeah, just to add on to what everybody's saying here is recognizing and having the self-awareness of when these protective measures are coming forward, when the trauma takes center stage, right? I speak in these terms. I'm a performer, so it's just natural for me. But like what Carina was saying here, the adaptive child, like when they are coming up and they are shutting down or they're fighting or whatever it is, bringing compassion to that child as well, bringing compassion to that part of you, because it's just there to protect you, right? Because as a child, when we're feeling these big, icky feelings that don't feel very good, it can feel like a crisis, like the end of the world, right? So this part of you comes up to protect you against having to feel the end of the world or feel like your world is crumbling. So giving compassion and grace to that part of you and not invalidating it or putting it in the back corner, putting it in timeout, is huge, right? Because these feelings, this part of you will claw its way out, and usually in the worst times, when we're trying to connect, when we're really trying to figure out a tough part of our life, or tough part of our relationship. So yeah, I feel like in understanding these traumas and being self-aware of them and aware of them, bringing the grace and the compassion to them, not bypassing them and not saying, oh, this is just the way I am because of this, this, and that, but allowing them to also be, giving them the validation, like, yes, makes sense that you feel this way. You've experienced this. This makes sense. But is that this is a feeling that we're feeling right now, but it's not our reality. We're not going through crises right now. We're okay. Right? Mm-hmm. You can take a breath. You can sit down. Right?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm so loving that you described that so beautifully, because one of the things I hear over and over again is people saying, yeah, but how do I love myself? Mm-hmm. Because those voices, when they're so mad and they're so upset in our heads, surely we're not supposed to love those parts. Surely we're supposed to get rid of those parts so we can get back to the parts that make sense to love. But what you described, like, this is the answer. This is the self-love. To take that breath, take that beat, appreciate these parts that come up, loving on them, not because they're an like social media not because they look perfect, but because they literally are a part of us, as you say, just doing their best to protect us. That is the self-love that I think literally has to blow up your mind a little bit. Yep. It doesn't feel like it makes sense in the moment, and then when you practice it just a little bit at a time, it lets yourself find both the acceptance and the feelings can actually happen all at the same time.
I'd like to address first what you said, which is so profound, and it's so amazing as a therapist to be able to see this. I hope, Shane, you can understand this as well if you use parts work or really any other modality. With parts work, we get the client to kind of reenact the voices or the parts themselves, and it's really, really cool when at first they're like, this part is so rude, it's so angry, it's so this, and I'm like, what would you say to it? They're like, I would say you, I would say this, and I'm like, okay. Step into the shoes of the part. What would you say to yourself? And it's like this, it's like, hey, I'm just trying to protect you, man. I know you don't like me. I'm just trying to protect you. And seeing that happen with the same person, same vessel, same time, same session during it, for me, is like and a lot of these times, these breakthrough moments, I need to ground myself after, because I'm like, the honor to be able to see this, crazy. And I think that is the real growth. It's not even the letting go of the part or understanding. It's that idea of like, wait, but I said that to myself when I was really angry about this. And it's that idea that, wait a second, this is me. And I think that's the growth portion. As to what you said, it's really interesting because you said, give them compassion. One thing I'm seeing a lot, and this is something we have to kind of educate people on, is when you give somebody who's having a trauma response, whether it be avoidance, whether it be aggression, anything of the sort, and you hit them with compassion, especially if you've learned that recently, I see a lot of guys who are like, yeah, man, we learned that when she's being really crazy, we just got to go and give her a big hug and be really nice. a lot of the times you're going to have it's going to kind of come down where they're going to be like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? And the reason is you're not actually doing anything wrong. They're not used to it. Their whole lives, they were used to their emotions being shunned, them feeling like they shouldn't feel like that as a kid. Why are you crying? Why are you throwing a tantrum? What's wrong with you? Now, when you're hit with that, that's healing for the other person because you're suddenly hit with compassion. Your brain, your nervous system's like, what is this? This is different. We don't like this. But that repeated process of compassion and coming back is what's going to heal so many relationships. And it's that thing that really creates a lasting impact on that person. Yeah.
And then just to add to that really quickly, when you give that compassion, like you said, everything comes down. You're now able to relax, right? And when you're in that fight or flight, that's when the fighter comes out. That's when you're running away or you're fighting, right? But when you relax, you can now think straight, right? You can come from a place of your heart or your brain and actually understand what's going on here.
Yeah. And so I guess I'll start first with expanding with what you were saying, like just the belief system that I carry and one that I express, especially with my clients, is everything in our life is happening for us rather than to us. And when we adopt that belief system, we allow ourselves to explore, like, what is this trying to teach me? So when we get into these situations, like our challenging conversations where I am triggered when I'm able to, because it's not always going to happen right off the bat. Like I got to take a deep breath. I got to go for the walk. I got to decompress to get back into my body. I then can explore, why am I so triggered by whatever you're doing? And realizing the role projection plays into all of this. Because am I triggered by your action, or is it that part of me that your action is putting the spotlight on? Am I willing to sit with that part of me? And in our relationship and throughout my whole life, one of my biggest challenges has been my relationship with shame. And ironically enough, my name is Shane. It's one letter different. And the letter happens to be the letter right before it in the alphabet, if you think of the M and N, right? And so this relationship I had with shame created a lot of feelings of being misunderstood, a lot of guilt, just feeling less than as I put it, my inner asshole would just feed me with a bunch of nonsense rooted in this feeling of shame. And when shame popped up in our relationship, in couples therapy, there's an approach called Gottman, and they talk about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So I start going straight into defensiveness. So whatever you're saying to me, I'm just like, no, that's not right. That's not what I said. And I'm so fixated on the verbiage, the language, that I'm not focusing on the feeling, because my mind is stuck in, I have to protect me. I don't want to, the shame is so loud right now that I got to protect me at all costs, and we're not getting anywhere. And the thing that's helped is when I've been able to ask for space, and as we've grown in our relationship with you also respecting that request, I was able to come down and really sit with myself and ask myself, what do I want out of this? Because I know you guys mentioned, the right and being in the relationship. The way I kind of look at it is the only options are we win together or we lose together. Mm-hmm. Whereas in past relationships is I'm trying to win and you're going to lose because I'm right, you're wrong. But that can't coexist in the relationship that we cultivate together, because we have to win together or we're going to lose together, because you are a reflection of me like I am a reflection of you. Mm-hmm. So when I sat with it and I'm asking myself, what do I want from this? Do I want to be fighting with my wife? Do I want to be going back and forth because maybe she might have misheard me, right? Or what is the alternative thought? Like my favorite tool I love to use is thought records, just to challenge, what is a different way I could look at this right now? And is she actually attacking me? Or is this just my ego going into that defensive mode? and it's not my reality. And at the beginning of a relationship, I also had to give myself permission to find alternative ways to communicate my feelings, because the shame would say you have to vocalize it or you're not a man. You're less than a man if you can't stand in front of your partner and express. But my trauma made me feel like that's not safe to do so, because I'm going to get cut off. I'm going to get interrupted. The body language is going to make me feel anxious, uncomfortable, insecure, like all these things where I can't control. So in order to feed my capacity of handling my anxiety, I had to choose to write you letters. And I would write out my feelings. And so that way I could sit with it, I could process it, manage the emotional tone of it as well, so that my shame part isn't being aggressive and yelling, but actually expressing what I need to, and also giving you the space to digest it, so that when we come together, I don't have to over explain myself because I said what I had to say. And now we can focus on the healing parts as opposed to going back and forth. Now, did that happen overnight? No, it took us quite a long time, but that then evolved now to the point where when these emotions come up and I want to express something to my wife, before just jumping into it, I recognize that I need to ask her for permission and say, do you have capacity to have this conversation with me right now? I am feeling something, but also, especially us as men, we tend to go into solution mode. And that could also be for women, but I know the masculine specifically is very logical, and it's like A plus B equal C. So with emotions, that doesn't always work. So another big piece for us was telling each other what it is that we need before we start this conversation. So a lot of the time, Mara might come to me, and because she didn't tell me that, I'm just thinking, okay, here's the answer. But what she actually needed was, I just need you to listen. I need you to validate. So now we practice. She'll come to me and say, I'm feeling a lot. I don't know exactly what it is. Can you just help me to validate this and explore it, like brainstorm it in a way? And I'll go to her at times and say, I need your help with this. I don't know what to do. I'm looking for you to help guide me with the solution. And what that does is it also takes the pressure off, because when she tells me that she needs a solution from me, then now I'm like, okay, cool. But if she tells me that she needs me to just validate, I'm now not thinking that I'm not enough because I don't know how to fix this, because I don't need to fix it. But prior to that, I always felt every emotion she displayed to me, okay, I got to have the answer. Being your husband, like if I can't fix it, no one can. And then I'm not good enough for you. And then you're going to leave me and then I'm alone. And that's the anxious narrative that happens. So by you telling me, no, just listen and you're okay. And then the last thing I want to share to this, because this one was really big, especially when my shame came out in full force and I'm ugly and I'm yelling and I'm swearing at you, which I shouldn't do. And then that makes me feel even more shame, is that she always saw past it. She always saw that and would call it out and be like, this isn't you right now. I know this isn't you, which could be frustrating as well, because that part of me takes over, but it also reminds me that the door is still open for me to come back. Because sometimes you get in too deep. It's like you're in the water, you can't swim, you don't know how you're going to get out of, and you get stuck in these moods and these emotions. But her just seeing me and calling it out invited me to come back sooner. And that time frame of me getting back went from a few hours of us like talking in the living room 5 hours straight to then now it might be 20 minutes or so. And that just represents the safety of our dynamic in the relationship. And it's empowered us to grow so much because we can be with our emotions together. Did I cover it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's great. That was wonderful.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much to add to that other than what was the original question, actually?
How recognizing traumas and healthy versus unhealthy changes.
Yeah, the only thing I would want to add is that makes a difference is the self-responsibility that we've all been talking about, which is I have this shit that comes up, I have this trigger, I want to figure out how to kind of work with it and work through it, versus this is just who I am, deal with it, which I think there can be a lot of in society, and it speaks to what you were saying of that, taking that responsibility of even if I'm not in a relationship or I'm beginning a relationship, of like, maybe I'll go to therapy and just kind of see what comes up, because there's probably going to be some stuff that, if it's not triggered right now, is going to be triggered when I start getting in deep with another person. So it's that choice. I've seen those relationships, I've seen those people where it's like, oh, it's all the other person's fault.
And one thing that I noticed, especially with the responses, not just right now, but even in the responses prior to the earlier questions, it's what it feels like, I guess, with a relationship. It's like we're all in this planet almost. It's like we're all on this planet. There's just so much things going on. But when you're in a relationship, it's like you get to be in your own little circle. You get to be in your own little world. And as great as it is to travel amongst the universe, but when you finally get home and you have your partner that you get to be home with, you get to build your own planet almost. And from that planet, you start to realize there's this internal universe that you never got to explore, that you'd almost rather explore. And as much as I've been in Kepler 6 over here, hearing people talk about, oh, you have to be this, you have to have this, your ego and pride, all these things that it feeds, my apologies, being in these different universes. When I finally get home and I get to discover this internal universe I have and my partner has, I get to learn how great my internal is, how great their internal is, and how much all of this outside noise means nothing. And I can shut all this out and we can focus on what matters for us the most. And that's our internal growth. Well, you guys said, worded it perfectly. It's how we win, how we get to become a better version of each other, better version of us, a better future that we get to have together. And I'm very appreciative of all of you guys being on the podcast here today. Thank you guys all for listening, being a part of the podcast. Feel free, like, comment, subscribe, everything that's always said. And if you want your beard glistening just like mine, please make sure you get one of Shane What's Good's skincare products. You see how great his beard looks over here as well.
I try. We got it.
And we got a lot of great therapists, so please feel free. I'm going to have their links as well in the comment section, in the description, I should say. It's going to show the links that you can message them. Maybe you want to be a part of their Instagram feed and learn more from them there. Maybe you want to book a session with one of the great people on this panel. Feel free to do so. Thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.